growing frogs. Growing frogs. Once when I was little, my mum read me a story about a frog that drank and drank and drank and grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Afterwards, Mum asked me if I'd like to watch some real frogs growing. I know where there's a pond with lots of frogs' eggs in it, she said. We could bring some home. I was frightened. I don't want any frogs jumping, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I said. But Mum gave me a hug. It's only a story, she said. Even when our frogs are growing up, they'll still be smaller than my hand. Oh, I said, okay. Next day, we went to look at the pond. The water was dark brown and there was grey jelly stuff floating on the top. Yuck, I said. There's the frog's pond, said Mum, and she pointed at the grey jelly stuff. I bet that was late last Friday night. The frogs were croaking so loudly, I couldn't get to sleep. You see the black dots in the middle of each jelly shell, said Mum. That's going to grow into a tadpole. Where are the frogs? I asked. Tadpoles grow into frogs, she said. Little ones, no giant frogs here. Mum put some pondweed and some stones into a bag. She filled a bucket with pond water. Then I scooped a little of the frog spawn into it. When we got home, we put everything into a big fish tank in the kitchen. The cats kept preying at it, so we had to put a wire net over the top. I counted 27 little black dots. Each dot was inside its own jelly shell. Every day when I woke up, I went downstairs to look at the frog spawn. The little dots grew into bigger dots and then into tiny commas. And one morning I saw the first tadpole wriggling out of its jelly shell. At first the tadpoles didn't do much. They just stayed close to their jelly shells and nibbled at the pondweed. But after 2 or 3 days, they looked quite different. There were feathery things on their heads, and I could see their eyes. They swam very fast. 10 of the eggs didn't hatch out. The black dots went dull and cloudy, and Mum took them away. Then we cleaned out the tank and put in French weed and pond water. One of the tadpoles swam into my hand when I was putting a stone back. It was slippery and slithery and it made me jump. After a bit, I got used to having tadpoles and I didn't look at them so often. When Mum told me their little feathery bits had gone, I didn't believe her, but it was true. It was me that saw the next change though. Look, I shouted, and Mum rushed to see. Some of the tadpoles had grown into 2 little bumps. Mum said the bumps would grow into black eyes. They grew very quickly. One day there were 2 little bumps. The next day the bumps were stumps. The day after that there were almost proper legs. And when the feet unfolded, there were webs, like tiny browny green fans. They aren't tadpoles anymore, I said. They're not quite frogs. The not quite frogs grew in frogs' legs next, and then their tails got shorter and their mouths got wider. Now they're frogs, said Mum. Baby ones. Soon the baby frogs were popping up and gulping at the surface of the water. One of them tried to climb onto the stones, but it slid off. Mum said they were getting ready to leave the water. Grown-up frogs breathe air, she said. That's what the stones are for, so our frogs can climb out of the water and breathe. Not long after that, Mum said it was time to take our baby frogs back to live in the pond with all the other baby frogs. I was sorry to leave them, but Mum said we could come back and visit every day. One rainy morning a week later, Mum woke me up very early. Hurry, she said, and we ran downstairs and out to the pond. There were hundreds of tiny frogs hopping over the grass. They're looking for dark, wet places to live in, Mum said. But they won't go far, and in a couple of years they'll be back to lay frog spawn of their own. Will they be bigger then? I asked. Just a little, said Mum. Good, I said. I like having frogs jumping about, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Growing frogs.